So we're at video 6. Okay, so Emmett Till was born in 1963. 1955 was the year that that Emmett Till was murdered, and it infused the civil rights movement, right? So Bill 1242 equals 9. 6 and 3, the year of Emmett Till's birth, as it reflects 1963, also equals 9, notwithstanding the 19, right? Or which 1 and 9 is 10, okay? But 63 represents his year of birth, okay? Which represents 9. So we'll start again. The late 14-year-old Emmett Till was also... No, we'll start again. The late 14-year-old Emmett Till also has a late uncle, okay, by the name of Moses. So you can see how Emmett Till's murder and his uncle relate to, and Emmett Till's birth year, or his birth year and his birth month represent him being a Leo, right? Emmett Till's a Leo, and which means he's of the tribe of Judah, and as it relates to his uncle being named Moses, who also led the Hebrew children out of slavery. So it all coincides with the number 9, right? And the Hebrew people. Okay, so he also had an uncle named Moses. Young Emmett Lewis Till was born on July 25th, which is a Leo, makes him a Leo. In not 1961, 1941. He was born in 1941. 1941, not 1963. I forgot how I got to 1963, but we'll get there. We'll get to 1963. Okay? So, yeah, he was born in 1941, not 1963. I forgot how I got to the 63, but we'll check that out, okay? So he was born in 1941 on July 25th. And that represents 7/7/1941. Okay, what makes H.R. Bill 1242 so synonymous with the murder of young 14-year-old Emmett Till is 1242, which equals 9. 63 also equals 9. I forgot why I did the 63, but we've got to find out. Okay, so young 14-year-old Emmett Till also was born July 25th, 1941. The activities that are to support the H.R. bill are scheduled to conclude by July 21st, 2019. But the 14 represents the 14th century on the Islamic calendar. Okay, and Emmett Till, the age Emmett Till was murdered at represents the 14th century on the Islamic calendar, right? And the fact that he was born July 25th makes him a Leo, which makes him born of the tribe of Judah, right? Okay, so that's how it, and he had an uncle named Moses, so that's what makes him synonymous with the bill 1242, okay, which equals 9, okay, and represents conclusion and all this, right? Completion. Okay, so to be concluded by the 21st, right? On 2019. Okay, the day the sun enters Leo, the symbol of the tribe of the Hebrew king of Judah, which is supposed to be the prophet born of a virgin, right? And the birthday, or the birth month of the week. Wait, the birth month and the week of the 14-year-old young Emmett Till. Okay, so the conclusion, the day, which is July 21st, 2019, is to conclude the commemoration of the recognition of the African Americans' contribution to America, right? So that is to recognize slavery, right? And to recognize their contribution and recognize their independence and all of this kind of stuff as it relates to Moses taking them out of slavery, taking the Hebrews out of slavery when they were held in Egypt, right? So this is to be symbolic of that, as represented by Emmett Till, or as he represents the tribe of Judah, right? As he was 14-year-old, which represents the 14th century on the Islamic calendar, as 9 represents the completion, right? Okay, I hope I got all that correct. Okay, so anyway, let me see. Okay, so Emmett Till was born in his birth month is July 25th, which is the month of which reflects a Leo, in the week of and the same week that the House bill is to recognize the Hebrews' contribution, or the African Americans' contribution to America is to conclude in the same week and month that Emmett Till was born, right? So Emmett Till is to symbolize that, right? They're to use that death like they use Christ's death, right? To symbolize, the Vatican's version of Christianity, right? Okay. So anyway, and his uncle Musa is to represent Moses, right? Leading them out of slavery, right? Because because the Hebrews are to be emancipated from, bondage after 400 years, right? Okay. So, Emmett Till's murder was to represent that, right? Okay. Now, so we got Emmett Till. Okay, we said Emmett Till's uncle was named Moses. Okay, so the 14-year-old young Emmett Till's uncle was named Moses. Moses is a prophet of the Hebrew nation, going all the way back to Prophet Abraham and the entry and exodus of the Hebrews from bondage from Egypt. The father of 14-year-old young Emmett Till, the father of 14-year-old young Emmett Till was befell to unreported circumstances. Okay, so he was killed by unreported circumstances. They don't know how he died, but he was in the army, right? He died in the army, defending America against Nazism, but they don't know how he died, right? They didn't report he was killed by enemy fire. Okay, they just said he was just reported as having died, right? Been killed. Okay. Now, so he was killed due to unreported circumstances, and on the Islamic calendar, it is the 14th century. 14 is the age of the death of young Emmett Till, as I stated. So 1941 is the year of young Emmett Till's birth, and 1440 and 2019 is the year of the Hebrew Israelites' freedom from the 400 years that they were held in bondage. So what they are doing is connecting these two dates, all these numbers, to reflect that they are letting the Hebrew Israelites free, so that they can be free of persecution from the universe, right? So they're trying to escape persecution. The Nazis are trying to escape persecution by reflecting upon Emmett Till's death by using his birthday, right? To bring them some type of black magic. Basically, that's what they're doing. Okay? by using Emmett Till, their connection to Emmett Till, and Emmett Till being born in the month of being born of the constellation of Leo, as Leo represents the tribe of Judah, right? As the tribe of Judah represents the Hebrews, right? Okay, and Moses, his uncle, leading them out, right? Because his uncle was the one who testified against the murderers of Emmett Till and continued to, seek justice for his nephew, right? For the death of his nephew. Okay, so 1440 and 2019 is the year the Hebrew Israelites will end. Therefore, are stated to be recognized as the year the Hebrew Israelites in their bondage in their enemy's land, having spent 400 years of bondage in their enemy's land, being persecuted and all the atrocities that they suffered in captivity while in bondage in the land of their enemies. Okay, so 1440 and 2019 is the year the Antichrist German Vatican Synagogue of Shit seeks to slay. It also seeks to slay its so-called red heifer that was born in the occupied land of Palestine, right? To the British Zionists, right, who occupied Palestine. So they had supposedly reporting they have a red heifer that was born, and they want to sacrifice it in the year 1440, which will be the year 2019, right? To celebrate the Hebrews coming out of bondage, right? Which they want to reflect they are the Hebrews coming out of bondage, so they want to sacrifice it, the Hebrew, according to Numbers. I think it's stated in Numbers about the red heifer. I don't recall correctly, but I think it is. You can check for yourself. Okay, what it says about the red heifer. Okay, and the sacrificing of the red heifer as it relates to the coming of or the Hebrews leaving bondage. I'm trying to think exactly how that goes. Okay, but that's what they want to commemorate it to. Okay, sacrificing the red heifer, like slaying the fatted cow. Okay, when the sons return home, the lost sons return home, right? So that's what they want to. That's what they want the significance to represent. It's like keeping that covenant, fulfilling the covenant, right, of slaying the fatted cow when the lost sons return, right? So they want to use Emmett Till and birth month and birthday to commemorate that, and his uncle Moses to commemorate that, and the year that the Hebrews are to be released from bondage. Okay, be taken out of bondage. That Allah's taken the Hebrews out of bondage, right? The 400 years of bondage that was prophesied by Prophet Abraham, right? That he saw his ancestors, his descendants being taken into bondage, right, into the enemy's land, and they would stay in bondage 400 years. So this is to commemorate that. Okay, so now 1440, and which will be 2019, is the year the Antichrist German Vatican Synagogue of Shit seeks to slay its red heifer as a sacrifice to support them in their global nuclear war that is to take place somewhere around 1444, which will be 2000 and the year 2022. So they want to do it on a master key number, right? So they do it through numerology, hoping all these years, the numbers will add up and they will get celestial power, right? And so they're trying to use Emmett Till's death, birth year, and birth month and his uncle to commemorate that, right? And through the acknowledgement of constructing that bill, which is reflected in 1242, right? Okay. So I'm just thinking about something else here. Right. Okay. Right. There's other numbers that they add. I'm looking at the other numbers, how they add up to the year 1955 to the year 2019, how that adds up, right? Okay, so I'm looking at that too, but I didn't write anything about that, so I'm not going to say anything about that. Okay, so this is not a conspiracy. This is, well, it is a conspiracy because it's when people conspire together to do some type of act. That is what a conspiracy is, okay? So we're just bringing that conspiracy to light, unveiling their conspiracy to do harm to all humanity and deceive the Africans or the Hebrews that they are trying to do something for the Hebrews by remembering all their contributions to America and for the Hebrews to be to participate in that celebration, right? Thereby surrender their power to the Nazis, just like the indigenous natives of Turtle Island, so-called Indians, were to celebrate Thanksgiving, which was a sacrificing of their ancestors. They are to celebrate in that, and therefore, through the celebration, release good energy to ill will, right? That's the same thing that's going on here, just like we said before, Christ being the sacrifice on the altar, or the sacrifice at Xmas, which is Capricorn, which is Saturn, right? He is to be supposedly born that much, which really represents the Vatican, decapitating or removing the Christ as the head of of his followers and placing the Vatican as the head. They're doing the same thing here, right? As they did with the natives of Turtle Island. You know, trying to get the natives of Turtle Island to participate in Thanksgiving, their way of commemorating Thanksgiving, which was sacrificing the natives of this land so that they would survive, right? They're doing the same thing here with H.R. 1, Bill H.R. 1242, right? To try to get the Africans to participate in their celebration of slaying the red heifer, in hopes that the Africans will, you know, accept that HR bill, not themselves as Hebrews, but accept themselves as African or Gentiles, basically, you know, and celebrate with the pagan who try to steal the legacy of the true Hebrews who were really enslaved in America. So by participating in the HR celebration, they would be participating in the red heifer celebration and give up their legacy, their inheritance, right? By acknowledging the Antichrist, right? Who's trying to deceive them and get them to participate, right? By saying, recognizing all their suffering, by recognizing through the usurping of the civil rights movement as it was infused by the murder of Emmett Till. Okay? So they're trying to get them to forget about that and just acknowledge as if now that they've been reparations was paid through the acknowledgement, and then that way they could try to get some celestial soul power to do their war in 1444, which will be 2022, right? Because remember, the covenant will be broken in, we made for 7 years and broken in half that time, in the middle of that 7 years. The 7 years would be like, let's say they were the re-election of another Zionist supporter would make a covenant like Kushner tried to make with the Palestinians, right, by taking Jerusalem first and then trying to make them think they had no more bargaining chips, nothing to bargain with, and they would be either accepting the occupation or die, giving them an offer they can't refuse. Now it's either accept your life, no more negotiating about Jerusalem because they have Jerusalem. The Zionists have Jerusalem. Now they could make a so-called peace agreement and break it in the year 2022 when there was a re-election of a new Zionist head in America, right? Regime in America, right? Okay, so that's the game they're playing there. Okay, Where was I? Okay. Okay. I gotta find out where I'm at. Okay. So, okay. Let's see. Okay. Okay. So, now, as we said, the HR bill was scheduled to conclude by July 21st, the day the sun enters Leo, the symbol of the tribe of the Hebrew king of Judah, and the birth month and week of the young 14-year-old Emmett Till, who was born July 25th, 1941, who also was murdered at 14 years old, right? Okay, so the 14-year-old Emmett Till uncle, we said, was named Moses. Moses was a prophet of the Hebrew nation, going all the way back to Prophet Abraham's entry, and Prophet Abraham and the entry in Exodus of the Hebrews from bondage in Egypt. We talked about that. Okay, now on this, we talked about the Islamic calendar. Okay, so on the Islamic calendar, 14, we talked about that. 14 is the age of young Emmett Till's death. We talked about that. Okay, so 1492. Okay, so we'll start here again. So, and 1440, and which will be 2019, is the year of the Hebrew Israelites. Well, is the year the Hebrew Israelites will is scheduled to be recognized. Is scheduled to 1440 and 2019 is the year the Hebrew Israelites will is the year that is scheduled to recognize the Hebrew Israelites' end of bondage, 400-year bondage, years of bondage in their and persecution, captivity, and as I said, bondage in the land of their enemies. 1440, which will be again 2019, is the year the Antichrist German Vatican Synagogue of Shit hopes to slay its red heifer as a sacrifice to support them in their global nuclear war, which they hope to start by 1444 or 2020, with the help of the African nations that they hope that will join them to re-give them their children, or sell them their children under an African Prosper program, warfare program, right? So they intend to launch the 1422 or 1444, which will be 2019. They hope to launch their war against the entire world to conquer the Holy Land and place their Nazi Antichrist on the throne to govern all the world, right? What is left of the world, right? If the global the pole shifts take place, right? But if the pole shift doesn't take place at that time, they hope that they can grab the land before the pole shift takes place, and they will be embedded and take over what remains of the land, right? Of the earth, as would be, as I say, okay? So, so they hope to conquer the whole world, and take over the Holy Land and conquer Africa and take over to be able to govern the whole world. The Nazi Antichrist, and put the Nazi Antichrist on the throne, the homosexual Antichrist on the throne, from his base in the Holy Land, and using the natural resources to build up their Antichrist empire in the motherland, right? So 1440, which was 2019, will end the 400 years of slavery by the Antichrist, the German Nazi Vatican, because the Vatican started the slavery, right, of African people. They're the ones who initiated them, holding the Hebrews into bondage and captivity by taking them into captivity. And they're the ones who initiated the persecution of the Hebrews. So, and that is the persecution that is to end. Yet the Nazis seek to reverse Allah's will by covertly attempting to use the death of young Emmett Till, the 14-year-old young Emmett Till, as was done with the crucifixion of Christ, or the stated stated crucifixion of Christ, as a celebration to aid them in gaining support to fight World War III, right? So as we said, they want Africans to help. They want Africans and Hebrews to help them in their fight against the Arab nations. Okay, in their war of Armageddon, by hoping that the African people will feel so indebted to them for giving them, but for renovating the ghetto, recognizing their contribution, basically giving them nothing. African prosper for selling their children, right, into war. Hoping the Hebrew people go back to Ghana and fight in the Ghanaian war military to fight against the Arabs, right, and to destroy and help, and then that war fighting against the Arabs and Africans will destroy African nations, right, and then the Nazis can come in and just take over, having had depopulated the African continent and the Arab nations by having them fight one another, right? So they hope to deceive these Hebrew and African and Arab nations into fighting one another by trying to give them fiat dollars and war under warfare program, African Prosper, and prison reform, renovating the ghetto, and recognizing their contribution to America. It's not contribution to America. Africans have contributed to the world. Hebrews have contributed to the history of the world. So they're not giving them anything, right? Okay. Sorry. This Jackson's Aries green light is dedicated to the king, right? Dedicated. MashaAllah. Okay, so they hope that the Africans will join in this celebration, sacrificing the red heifer, and invest their goodwill, like the natives of Turtle Island were to invest in their goodwill in celebrating Thanksgiving. Okay, and all others are to celebrate their goodwill by celebrating so-called Christmas, which is Xmas, which is the winter solstice, right? Right. And it's okay to recognize this winter solstice and celebrate the winter solstice, right? But not the pagan Vatican, right? Okay. Not celebrate the pagan Vatican as the head of the Hebrew nations. Okay. Okay. So let me see where we are. Okay. Okay, we said that. Okay, so it's to aid them in gaining support to fight World War III and place their and in supporting the Nazis, Africans and Arabs are to as I said, fight one another, but the Africans and the Hebrews are to support the Nazis, and therefore support the torment against themselves, support their tormentors, their slave masters, and place him on the throne as head of their carbon black bodies, right? Or the body of humanity, the semen of Adam, right? And make him the overlord, the God, the landlord, the God of the land, right? And of the entire global Hebrew nation of Judah and the entire world, to rule from the holiest of holies in the motherland. Okay, the Antichrist German Vatican, Nazi Vatican of shit, enslaved the Hebrews for over 400 years, and now he wants to be their God. He seeks to be their God and seeks to have them make them their God under their H.R. 1242 bill, okay, by recognizing the death of Emmett, 14-year-old young Emmett Till. And he wants the Nazi Vatican, Zionist, wants to be the eternal master and God of all humanity, okay. So the pile of Antichrist German Vatican hog shit awaits at the South Node. Is that kind of consciousness that is awaiting at the South Node to ensnare all humanity, to sink it, as stated, in their global nuclear battle around 2022, which will be 1444. So 2022 will be, as I said, 1444 on the Islamic calendar, a master date, a master number. And all the numbers are to add up. Numbers of 14, associated with 14, which is as 14-year-old Emmett Till, his birthday, 1941, and him being born in July, which is the 25th, which is reflects him being a Leo, which reflects him being as reflective of him being of the tribe of Judah, his uncle representing Moses, the one who led them out of bondage, and as it reflects the 400 years of being held captive in bondage in their enemy's land, as prophesied by Prophet Abraham. Okay, so as I said, 2022 will be 1444 on the Islamic calendar, and all the numbers are to add up. And as I said, 14-year-old young Emmett Lewis Till, born of a Leo, July 24th and July 25th, 1441, is to reflect that. The royal ancestors, again, the royal ancestors are directing humanity home. Okay, they're directing the Jackson Global Pride home to the North Node, by way of the North Node, okay, in the direction of the North Node, okay, and it's directing the Jackson Global Pride away from the South Node chaos and toward the North Node, as stated, and far above the North Star crown of the Divine Mother Milky Way galaxy, and toward home, toward the direction of home of the Father galaxy Andromeda, okay, which those two galaxies, okay, reflect the Mother and Father galaxy, okay, which reflect the Mother and Father of humanity, okay, and so it's being, humanity is being directed away from the South Node and toward the resurrected Christ consciousness of the house, which went into the house of Aquarius, because we are now in the age of Aquarius, right? And as the consciousness, Christ consciousness returned to the earth, as stated, 2011, okay, which went to the Temple Mount, right, in Al-Aqsa Mosque, which it went to the house of Islam, right? Excuse me, and okay, and we are to follow that Christ consciousness as it's directed by the legacy of the King Michael, the legendary King Michael Joseph Jackson, as he was an Aquarian ascendant, okay? And we are to follow that legacy to get to the Christ consciousness. There is no, we have to follow the Christ consciousness, okay? We have to follow Michael Joseph Jackson, and he became a Muslim, okay? And Islam is not terrorism. Islam is a divine consciousness, and as stated, when the Christ consciousness comes, it will return to the house of Islam, okay? It will enter the house of Islam, and it did that in the year 1437, which was the year 2011, in the month of Aquarius, okay, which was January 28th, which was Safar, the second month on the Islamic calendar, Safar 24, okay? Assalamu alaikum. We're going to go to video 7.